Hello, this is Alan from 1010 Graphics. Today, we're going to make a Porsche sign on the CNC. This is going to be a project video. I'm going to show you everything front to back. We're going to go ahead and look over all the items you need to make this sign. I thought this would be a great project to do my introductory video on YouTube with. This is all about V-carving, and you get a lot of oohs and ahs. How'd you do that? What I'm going to do is show you what I use to go ahead and make this project, all of it, front to back. We're going to go over the design process. Hey, how do you sit there and use Aspire? We're going to go to the milling process. Hey, how do you actually mill on a CNC to actually cut this thing out? And we're also going to use traditional woodworking techniques to finish the sign. Basically, at the end of the day, you're going to have a completed sign. Let's get started.
Alright, the first part of any CNC project is you have to make vectors. And to do that you need a program that makes vectors for you. Well, here's the program I use. I use Vectric Aspire. I'm using Vectric Aspire 8.5. Version 9 just came out. But everything right now, version 8.5 works for me. Okay, so here is the sign. Basically the vector that I found on the internet. And it was in pretty poor shape. I spent a little time cleaning this up. The lines were skewed. This is a pretty poor scan. I spent a little time cleaning this up, and basically this is what the final product is before you right now. So basically when you start any CNC project, you're going to have vectors, and all the vectors are just lines right here. They can be squiggly lines, they can be straight lines, they can be like a horse line, they could be text. Bottom line is they're nothing more than lines, and these lines are what the cutter head follows. So when you start a project, you have to tell the orientation of what's going on, and this is all done right here in the job setup. You click here and it tells you the size of the project, the X and Y, the Z, which is basically the height, and then you go ahead and look at your datum point, and right here we have our datum point in the center. You can move this around anywhere you want. And it just depends when you're building a project on the design phase. You can put this anywhere you want, and it just tells the machine, hey, where is the data point at for you setting your X and Y's and your Z's. And it comes more important when you get over to the machine side. But basically we'll just leave this in the center for our example right now. All right, so here we are sitting right with the Porsche sign. And I added a couple of extra lines in here, and you'll see them pop up. There's those other two. The reason why I put those in there is I'm going to V-carve some extra lines that wasn't in the original sign. So I added those in Aspire, and I'll show you how this is actually going to play in. So we're on the left side of the Aspire is all about the design side. Let's move over to the right side of Aspire, and this is all about the machining side of the house. Okay, so let's go ahead and pin this. And basically what we have here are 4 tool paths. And the first tool path that I have right here is just going to go ahead. It's a V-carve, pretty simple. It's just a 60 degree V-carve bit that I have that's falling in between these lines, and it's V-carving these lines out. Then the next 60 degree bit, basically same bit, just running a different profile in the signs and depth that I have programmed in here. This is what it's cutting out right here. Then you go ahead and look at the edge profile, and you remember those 2 lines that I put in here? This is the reason I wanted to V-carve around the whole sign right here, and that's why I had that in there. And then our last thing that we're going to do is go ahead and run an end mill, and this is going to actually cut out the sign out of the blank. Okay, so when I look at these individually, and I want to sit there, okay, this is what I'm expecting. Yeah, that's how all this is going to cut out. That looks good. And then I'm going to run the perimeters with those extra lines I put in there. Yeah, that's another B-bit. And then I'm going to cut everything out. Hey, that looks beautiful. Okay, this is in the 2D view. Let's go ahead and check this out in the 3D view. Let's go ahead and click on your 3D tab up here. And let's go ahead and look at all your tool paths here. And here's your tool paths in basically 2D, but now let's go ahead and check everything out 3D. Alright, so we will animate this thing. We'll slow this down a little bit so it doesn't take up too much time. And we're going to go ahead and animate this whole cutter head cutting out this project. Oops, sorry about that. My mistake. Let's reset the preview and we'll preview all the tool paths. And here we go. This is what we need. Okay, so as you can see, yeah, that's exactly what I was looking at. That's what I want. I wanted that V-Carve to make it nice, sharp lines. Got a nice cut on the Porsche sign. And the emblems here. Yeah, everything looks good. I can zoom in a little bit. And I can see, yeah, this is exactly what I wanted. That looks really good. Nice job. All right. Let's go back and check the 2D on this. And you can see, okay, there. That gives you a good idea with the cutter heads. And I look over here, learn it one more time, make sure this is exactly what I wanted, because what will happen is that cutter head represents exactly what's going to happen on the machine. Let's get rid of this blank material. Okay, that's good. That's what we need. Okay, so let's go ahead and output this file and we can run it on the machine. Let's put this up a little bit. There we go. All right, let's output the file right here. And we'll put all 4 of these. So here's our 4 tool paths that we have. Save the tool path. Okay, I can go over and overwrite, and that's all it is. Now I'll just load this in machine and it'll run. Now what this looks like is this. This is what's called G-code. Now, what we outputted the file, this is the name of the file. Remember we talked about, here's our setup, here's the blank that we're running in here. And here are our 4 tool paths that we ran right here. And basically what this means, M6T1, that means it's a tool change. And we have to put a bit in there to go ahead and run this next section of the tool path. I don't have an automatic tool changer. Unfortunately, all mine's manual. No big problem, no big deal. It's easy to do. As it comes up, it'll tell you exactly when you do a change in the machine. And basically, the G-code is right here. This is what G-code actually looks like. And all this is telling you the X and Y, where that cutter head is moving, and the Z, basically the depth. How deep is that thing going to cut into the project? And as you can see, each line of code, it moves just a little bit, depending on what's going on, until you actually cut this out. So that's all there is to G-code. You don't have to know that much about G-code because it's handled by the machine. Kind of like driving a car. You don't need to know how the brakes work. You just step on the brakes and magic, it happens. The same thing with CNC with G-codes. Okay, so we've designed this thing. We've got the G-code. Let's go ahead and load the G-code in the machine and let's start cutting. Okay, this is the milling section. This is where the fun begins on the CNC. Here's the blank actually attached to the CNC bed right now, and it's getting ready to be milled. And here's some shots right here during the milling process itself. I'm using a 60-degree V-bit, and it's running about 12,000 RPM. This kind of gives you a shot of the CNC moving around. And I left the dust boot on. I apologize about that, but with that type of speeds, you just have sawdust everywhere. The dust boot is off, so please bear with me on that. But as you can see, it's starting to cut some of the leaf side of the sign. And again, that's the V-bit. And you can see the deep grooves that we have in there. And that's where the reason is you have to spend so much time on your vectors. You want to have those really sharp lines. Here's the CNC control panel. And as you can see, you know, the cutter head's moving along. And here's another shot of cutting out the leaves on the left side of the sign. And here is the lettering for the sign itself, the Porsche. And again, that's using a V-bit. And here is the completed version of the sign when it was off the table and completely sanded. Came out pretty good. Nice sharp lines, good detail. Okay, on the finishing side of the house, pretty basic here. Just picked up some black paint and I sprayed all the recessed panels as the sign. Got a little bit overzealous on this. Note to self, don't use so much black paint because you get what we have here. A totally black sign, which has to be sanded. So I started sanding. And I started out with the orbital sander, and it took a little bit of time to bring that down. Again, don't get overzealous with the black paint because you have to do a tremendous amount of sanding, which I did. And here's the belt sander. And oh, by the way, we're sanding again. But at the end of the day, it worked out pretty well because I had a really sharp contrast with the black lettering and the aspen, which is a very, very light wood. And here's a shot of what it looks like. As you can see, pretty good. You get a really nice contrast on the side with the light wood and the dark lines for the Porsche sign. So the next step was I had to go ahead and get some wood conditioner. And what I did is just painted some wood conditioners. Just used a brush and slide it on. And I let it set for about 15 minutes or so. And then I came back and I used a smaller brush to go ahead and apply the stain. I used a darker stain on this to keep that contrast, and fortunately it worked out pretty well. And I just started at the top of the sign and I just worked my way down and just taking my time trying to keep the stain out of the recesses of the sign, so I can keep that really dark black lines in the sign. That was pretty successful. Most of it went pretty well. And that's all it is, just sitting there painting this in. I let it set for about 15 minutes. And then I came back with a rag and I started to sit there and wipe off the excess stain. This is kind of like we call rubbing one out in woodworking culture. Note to self on this one, you want to use gloves here. I didn't use any gloves and I had stain on my hand for several days. My wife was not real happy about that. But this is what it looks like in the sun. Really dark look, really rich in the sunlight. And then here's the sign with it being completed in the shop. Just another couple shots of it. And I think overall it came out very, very well. I was real happy with how the whole project transpired. And it worked out well. I ended up making a second Porsche sign in MDF. It milled out very well on the CNC machine. I was very happy with it. Now that I have two Porsche signs, I ended up giving both away to a close family friend who is a huge Porsche fan. The one on the left, the MDF version, now sits in his garage above his Porsche, and the one on the right, the all wooden version made in aspen, now sits in his man cave. As a thank you, he let me drive his 911. That's the first time I ever drove a Porsche before. What a blast. It was a good win for everybody. He ended up with two Porsche signs and I got to drive a 911. Smiles all the way around. This was a great project to do. Alright, so this is the end of my first introductory video. I hope you liked it. Hope you learned something and were able to make some sawdust in your own shop someday with some of the techniques you've learned here. This is my introductory video. So I have some other projects in work, and here's some ideas that I have right there. I just have to edit them. But I'd really appreciate it if you would give me some feedback. What you liked about the channel, what you didn't like about it. And if you did like my channel, hey, go ahead and subscribe, and I hope to see you next time. This is Alan from 1010 Graphics. Have a great day.